I hold that by the Constitution, the Union of the United States exists perpetually. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. All persons held as slaves shall be thenceforward and forever free. I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, call forth the militia of the several states of the Union in order to suppress the southern states' rebellion. And I appeal to all loyal citizens to aid this effort to maintain the honor, integrity, and existence of our national union.
In 1860 and 61, 11 Southern states asserted the doctrine of state rights, defied the authority of the federal government, and seceded from the Union. That same year, Wisconsin celebrated its 12th birthday. It also took its census. The results? Nearly 800,000 people, fewer than half as many as metropolitan Milwaukee today. Transplanted Yankees, people who had come from the New England states and New York, made up the majority of the population. But over a third claimed foreign birthplaces. Few of these people held back from expressing what they thought about Wisconsin and their newly adopted nation. One immigrant wrote to a family in Europe, "I'm proud to call myself a Wisconsinite and an American. The country stands for freedom and equality of opportunity, and I stand for the country." Lincoln spoke to this sentiment when he made his call to arms. Wisconsin's governor, Alexander Randall, responded immediately by issuing a proclamation. Organized treason has manifested itself within several states of the Union. Armed rebels are making war. A presidential demand for aid from Wisconsin must be met with a prompt response. All good citizens everywhere must join in making common cause against a common enemy. The governor's words created a surge of patriotism. Wisconsin volunteers overwhelmed local recruiting stations. At one, a 73-year-old veteran of the War of 1812, Rufus Brockway, showed up. At another, a 12-year-old Racine boy, Johnny Walker. He wanted to be a drummer. Though age limits excluded both, recruiters accepted them. Brockway, Walker, and others, usually between ages 17 and 21, joined companies of 100 men each. The companies elected their own officers and invented colorful names for themselves. The Eau Claire Eagles, the Madison Governor's Guard, the Oconomowoc Rifles, the New Glarus William Tell Sharpshooters. Most companies mustered into 1,000-man regiments at the Madison State Fairgrounds, renamed Camp Randall in the governor's honor. Camp life taxed the men. They slept in the fairgrounds' horse stables and cow sheds, itched from flea-ridden straw on their bunks, awoke to cannon blasts at 5 a.m., drilled 3 hours in the morning and afternoon, and lined up for dress parades in the evening. For relief, they gambled. They favored poker, euchre, and blackjack. They drank whiskey, which they called knock'em stiff and tanglefoot. They also looked forward to their regiment's flag presentation. At the presentation ceremony, a regiment usually received 2 flags, a Wisconsin state flag bearing the state seal and motto, and a national flag displaying the regiment's unique number, colors, and motto. Patriotic ladies and wives of the officers made some of the early flags, using silk for their material. During the 4 years of the war, Camp Randall and 13 other camps around the state held 69 flag presentations for the 69 regiments Wisconsin organized. The flags flew over hundreds of battles and skirmishes from Virginia to Texas. After the war, the regiments turned them over to state officials. Governor Lucius Fairchild, a war veteran, installed the battle flags in the state capitol in 1866 to serve as monuments of glory. When the present capitol was built, state officials placed the flags in a museum sponsored by the Wisconsin chapter of the nationwide veteran organization, the Grand Army of the Republic, GAR for short. The GAR Museum is now conserving the Civil War flags. It is situated on the 4th floor of the Capitol building in Madison.
Because the Civil War was the most important event that ever happened in Wisconsin's history, the state legislature established the GAR Memorial Hall Museum in 1901. The GAR Memorial Hall Museum conserves, preserves, and displays objects relating to Wisconsin's Civil War experience. In a sense, it preserves and transmits the state's Civil War heritage to future generations.
The museum is conserving the flags. A St. Paul conservation specialist has completed 29 of them. Each flag costs $1,500 to treat.
This is the conserved battle flag of the 8th Wisconsin Regiment, commonly known as Eagle Regiment. The flag has been conserved at a specialized flag conservation laboratory in St. Paul. The process is very simple. We take the flag material, have it sandwiched between 2 layers of silk crapulin netting, and immerse it in a deacidifying solution, blocking it, sewing it, and then we return it to the GI Memorial Hall for a rotating display. The flag program is an ongoing program. We do accept donations from private individuals for conservation treatment on any particular flag.
On a wall above the stage hangs a torn, faded flag. It symbolizes the 5,000 men of the Iron Brigade.
I'm looking at the staffs of the flags of the Iron Brigade, the 2nd, 6th, and 7th Wisconsin Infantry Regiments. They are among the most remarkable in our entire collection. If you look closely, you can see the damage which was done by bullets at various battlefields. You see, here, especially here, these are the places where people held these flags, held them tightly in their hands rather than let them fall into the hands of the enemy.
The Iron Brigade distinguished itself as the most renowned fighting unit in the Union armies. Historians credit Generals George McClellan and Joseph Hooker with inventing the name. Overlooking the Battle of South Mountain, the generals observed the brigade clawing up a mountain pass, driving Confederates from entrenchments. Said McClellan, "Those men must be made of iron." Hooker replied, "They are my Iron Brigade." The name stuck. Among Iron Brigade commanders, John Gibbons stands out. "We were still raw recruits when we started under him," Brigade member Rufus Daw wrote. "In 3 short months, he turned us into bona fide soldiers." He gave something as important to a soldier as firepower, spirit and self-confidence, wrote another diarist. Gibbon also gave the brigade the Union Army's most distinctive uniform, a dark blue, brass-buttoned frock coat with light blue collar, white gaiters, light blue trousers, white dress gloves, and a wide-brimmed black felt hat turned up on one side and decked with a jaunty black feather on the other.
When the Iron Brigade went into battle, they used new weapons. These new weapons included a rifled musket. The rifled musket was a dramatic improvement over what had previously been available, and it was a great improvement because of an invention by a French engineer named Minié. He improved the rifle bullet. This allowed the bullet to, when it left the barrel, to spin, thereby increasing range and accuracy dramatically. This, of course, had the effect of making a rifle weapon shoot accurately at 500 yards, as opposed to the 50 or 40 yards that had been possible with a smoothbore musket. In addition to rifle muskets, weapons technology improved during the Civil War era to even greater extents. Prior to the war and during the war, most of the weapons were loaded from the muzzle. And just prior to the war, the new technology that was coming about included breech-loading weapons, which a soldier could load from the back rather than from the front. This increased the rate of fire dramatically, and because of the increased rate of fire, had the effect of increasing the casualties. The whole situation with the Civil War is that you have a modern weapons technology being developed, and at the same time that modern weapons technology is being developed, the tactics that were used at the time were still those that had been inherited from the age of Napoleon, when modern weapons technology was not in existence. Because of these factors, units like the Iron Brigade suffered great casualties.
Besides the Iron Brigade units, other Wisconsin regiments distinguished themselves. Most fought in what contemporaries defined as part of the West, the country's central and southern midsection. The 8th Wisconsin Regiment soldiered in many of the states there: Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. And it carried into battle the war's most unusual mascot, a 14-pound bald eagle affectionately called Old Abe. Old Abe sat atop a 5-foot perch and screeched his way through 37 hard-fought battles and skirmishes. In one, the Battle of Corinth, a Confederate bullet winged Old Abe, while another snapped the cord securing him to his perch. Old Abe survived the battle. He also survived the war. An Eau Claire paper noted he retired to a comfortable pension and pampered old age. While Old Abe helped distinguish the 8th Regiment, ethnicity set off other units.
I'm standing in front of the flag of the 15th Wisconsin Infantry, sometimes called the Fighting 15th or the Scandinavian Regiment. The 15th Wisconsin was commanded by Colonel Hans Christian Haig, one of the earliest Norwegian political leaders in the state of Wisconsin. There were so many Ole Johnsons in the ranks of the 15th that they had to be given numbers so that they could be distinguished from one another. Each one of these words represents a battle, major battle, in which the 15th participated. Among the major battles were Chickamauga, Missionary Ridge, and Atlanta. The 15th was a very active regiment. Members of other Wisconsin ethnic groups found themselves in the ranks of various state regiments. Germans could be found in the ranks of the 9th, 26th, 27th Infantry Regiments. French Canadians could be found in the 12th Wisconsin Regiment, and Irish could be found in the ranks of the 17th Wisconsin Infantry.
Women also distinguished themselves during the Civil War. Many served as soldiers. The War Department estimates that as many as 4,000 may have enlisted into the ranks. Women, to get into the regiments, disguised themselves as men. They cut their hair and wore men's clothing. Many hurried medical examiners allowed these women to flow into the ranks. Women served for the same purposes as men, for adventure, honor, and patriotism. One such woman from Wisconsin was Belle Peterson. She supposedly served as a spy. The War Department, of course, kept her activities in secret. However, many journalists said that she served as a scout and a courier. Another woman from Wisconsin, Ellen Goodrich, enlisted along with her fiancé into one of the regiments, served with him for 3 years, nursed him through 2 illnesses, and as he lay upon his deathbed, granted him one last wish and married him.
Other women went as field nurses, or as soldiers call them, daughters of the regiment. Ann Etheridge volunteered as a nurse. Her kindness and bravery under fire won her admiration, respect, and even worship from the soldiers she served.
Other courageous Wisconsin women went as field nurses and as daughters of the regiment. Ann Etheridge volunteered her services to her state as a field nurse. And during battle, because of her bravery and kindness under fire, Ann was wooed with much affection and admiration from the members of the regiment under which she served. Ann was indeed a true Civil War heroine. She endured dirt and filthy conditions, worm-infested food, and death fears of soldiers on the field. She repeatedly risked her life at such places as Chancellorsville and Bull Run in order to bring water, food, medical supplies, and comforts to those dying, wounded soldiers on the field. She, during the last year of the Civil War, was honored by her regiment and awarded a much-cherished Medal of Recognition.
Besides frontline service, women provided leadership back in Wisconsin. In homes with a soldier father and brothers, women kept families together and food on the table, ran farms, paid off debts, and entered the workforce as newspaper typesetters and factory laborers. In addition, they formed aid societies to provide food, clothing, and medical supplies to the soldiers. Henrietta Colt from Milwaukee spearheaded the Wisconsin Aid Society movement. In 2 years, she helped organize 300 chapters in towns like Appleton, Fond du Lac, Beloit, and La Crosse. At one time, the society claimed they shipped an unbroken line of supply boxes stretching all the way to Vicksburg, Mississippi. While Colt achieved statewide fame, Cordelia Harvey achieved it nationally. Empowered by the governor to evaluate the quality of hospital care for Wisconsin soldiers, she visited hospitals in Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Louisiana, and what she saw appalled her. Piles of chopped off arms and legs outside hospital doors, swarms of insect pests crawling over patients, and drunken, incompetent surgeons and orderlies treating disease with remedies composed of turpentine and strychnine. Lincoln, after noting her observations and listening to her persistent arguments, established the first Northern military hospitals. The nation recognized other heroes from Wisconsin. 3 stand out. William Upham fought at First Bull Run. His son, William, recalls his heroism.
My father was shot with a minie ball that went just at where the neck meets the shoulder, just missing a jugular vein, and came out underneath his left shoulder. After my father was shot, he was dragged to Sidley Church, as I recall, and at the church, the wounded were laid out and cared for as best they could. He was left there because there was no medical attention, and it was limited. It was a field operation, and he was left there for 3 days, and as I look on it, he was probably saved by the mere fact that he was not moved. The blood had a chance to clot. He was saved because he didn't have medical attention. I think the heroism was one of those things that happened. He did a series of very small things, like being one of the first to enlist, being one of the first to answer the call of President Lincoln and Governor Randall in the battle cry of freedom. And before he knew it, as a young man, he was on a battlefield. And at that time, no one knew what was going to happen. And he did what was necessary to survive. And to go through the heroic efforts that he made to remain alive 3 days without medical attention, seriously wounded, being dragged off to a prison. Those are pretty heroic challenges, and we like to think that he met them, and he did survive.
Other Wisconsinites made contributions to the Union cause. Arthur MacArthur of the 24th Infantry Regiment, for example, a youth barely out of his teens, serving as a second lieutenant at the time, was one of them. In 1863, the 24th Infantry Regiment participated in the Battle of Missionary Ridge. Against orders, Arthur MacArthur led a charge into what seemed like certain death against Confederate positions entrenched high on the hill. As the color bearer of his regiment was shot down, Arthur MacArthur picked up the regimental flag, waved it aloft, and cried, "On Wisconsin." They carried the day. General Ulysses S. Grant, who was watching through his field glasses, turned to an aide and said, "If that man succeeds, make him a captain. If he fails, court-martial him." Arthur MacArthur succeeded, became a captain, and was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his bravery. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Bailey of Wisconsin Dells became famous when he devised a series of dams which saved a Union fleet that had been trapped by low water on the Red River of Louisiana in 1864. Bailey had gained experience in Wisconsin pinery, devising dams and other obstructions which would change river courses so that logs could be floated downstream during log drives in the Wisconsin pining days back in the 19th century. In 1864, Bailey found himself attached to General Nathaniel P. Banks's command, who who led a large expedition into western Louisiana along the Red River. The Red River fell, and the Union fleet, a tremendous gunboat fleet, was trapped by low water. Bailey devised an ingenious series of dams to help raise the water level in the Red River and thereby help the Union fleet escape from a certain destruction. Bailey was awarded a congressional citation for his abilities, as well as being promoted general.
2 other Wisconsin soldiers deserve heroic status: a Menominee Indian and a black man. Corporal Hapatapa Noquette marched with the 37th Wisconsin Infantry, one of 3 units which counted more than 600 warriors from 7 Indian nations. The corporal and other warriors participated in 2 major campaigns in the latter days of the war. Daniel Adams of Delafield and 200 other Wisconsin blacks fought with the United States colored troops. They were among those who braved the Confederates' last stand. Bullets killed both Hapatapa Noquette and Adams.
The Indian tribes of Wisconsin have had a long and illustrious history of participating with the American government and its colonial predecessors in the wars we have fought. During the Civil War, the Wisconsin Indian tribes responded with alacrity to the call to the colors. In 3 Wisconsin Indian regiments, about 600 warriors participated in the battles. In addition, there were several hundred other Indian warriors who participated in other regiments. Their participation ranged from the battles of Manassas in Virginia to the battles in Missouri and Oklahoma. And throughout this war, there were numerous casualties. For example, the Stockbridge Indian tribe lost 1/3 of their male members. And at Oneida, Wisconsin, there's a roster of 143 Oneida veterans of the Civil War. At the same time, we find during the American Civil War that the small population of blacks in the state responded with overwhelming vigor to the call to the colors. For the first couple of years, they were restricted in their ability to respond. But after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation came, they joined the American Civil War regiments in overwhelming numbers. About 200 American blacks joined the Wisconsin regiments and served with distinction on several battlefields. And they also incurred numerous and heavy casualties.
The valor of these men and all the Wisconsin participants in the Civil War lives on in the freedoms and national union Wisconsin people share today. So do the memories of those participants. They survive in the names of numerous towns, counties, streets, parks, high schools, a football stadium, a school mascot, statues and memorials, even a magazine. The town of Washburn on Lake Superior and the county of the same name memorialize Major General Cadwallader Washburn, 2nd Wisconsin Cavalry, highest-ranking Wisconsin resident in the war, later state governor, grantor of UW-Madison's Observatory, and founder of the General Mills and Betty Crocker Empire. Rusk County is named after Jeremiah Rusk, 25th Infantry, later governor. The town of Fairchild in Eau Claire County, after Lucius Fairchild, a hero at Gettysburg, later governor. The town of Peck in Langlade County, after George Peck, 4th Cavalry, later governor, and author of a best-selling humorous book, Peck's Bad Boy. Upham Street, a main street of Marshfield, and Upham Township in Langlade County, after William Upham, hero at Bull Run, later governor. Rufus King High School, Milwaukee, after Rufus King, first commander of the Iron Brigade. The Hans Hegg statue on the grounds of the state capitol in Madison, after Hans Hegg, commander of the Scandinavian Fighting 15th Regiment. The Old Abe mascot of Memorial High School, Eau Claire, after the famous Eagle mascot of the 8th Regiment. Cushing State Park and Memorial, Delafield, after the three Cushing brothers, two of whom died in federal uniforms, and the third of whom received presidential and congressional honors for almost single-handedly sinking the Confederacy's formidable ironclad ship, the Albemarle. Hobart Park Chilton, after Harrison Hobart, Union Army general, and one-time inmate of the Confederacy's infamous Libby prison, from which he made a daring escape. And Hoard's Dairyman, a farm magazine with worldwide circulation, after William Hoard, 4th Cavalry, Wisconsin governor. These memorials lay in the future on 2 warm, bright days of 1865. By then, Lincoln had died. Lee had surrendered, and the triumphant Union armies had come into Washington 200,000 strong. The Army of the East under General Ulysses Grant, and the Army of the West under General William Sherman. Over 10,000 Wisconsin men encamped with the armies along the Potomac River. They looked forward to what the War Department termed the Grand Review, a 2-day victory parade down Pennsylvania Avenue between the nation's capital and the White House. Also looking forward excitedly were hundreds of thousands of jubilant northern civilians who jammed into the city to celebrate the event. Generals Grant and George Meade chose the 38th Wisconsin to lead the parade. One of the corporals in the 38th wrote, "The general's choice added up. Wisconsin boys had fought in the front from the first." While the armies paraded, soldiers and spectators tried to forget the war's tragedy. 622,000 dead and over 1 million wounded north and south. Wisconsin figures, 12,000 dead out of nearly 90,000 who served. One of those who tried to forget was Captain Julian Hinckley. "I hurrahed all day long. I cheered for the Union. I cheered for Wisconsin. I cheered for our families and homes. By nightfall, I was completely hoarse." Others who marched on those May days wrote about their satisfaction in having helped save the Union, and their hope that principles fought and died for would always be remembered and cherished. But it was Private Edward Levings who expressed a sentiment and desire nearly every soldier could relate to. "We have served the Union and our state well. Now all I want to do is go home to my family, see the colt I bought on furlough, and eat the biggest piece of strawberry shortcake Mother's ever served. I can almost taste it now."